So hello everybody, this is Bhante Joe here, just doing a short reflection for the internet, and thought that maybe we could start off with a little bit of meditation, maybe just 5 minutes or so, and followed by a short Dhamma talk. So we can get our body in position, just leaning forward a bit, and straightening our back, looking about 3 feet in front of us, and closing our eyes. And can focus in on the breath. Can know when it's coming in, and know when it's going out. If we breathe in a long breath, can just know, I'm breathing in a long breath. And if we breathe in a short breath, can just know, I'm breathing in a short breath. And can focus in on the breath at the tip of the nose. And if we notice any patterns of tension or tightness around the nose or the face, you can just let those relax. And we can breathe in and out from this area at the tip of the nose. And when breathing in and out from the tip of the nose here, it can be helpful to change our perception of the breath so that it's not just air that one's pulling in and out of the lungs, but it's a kind of energy that's all around and coursing through one's body. And it's possible to pull it into and out of any part of the body one might like. So one can breathe in and out from this area at the tip of the nose, almost as if one was pulling in breath energy from all directions, not just the nostrils. And when breathing in and out, can try to make our mindfulness as continuous as possible, trying to be aware of the breath as it comes in, all the way through the in-breath, as it turns into the out-breath, and then all the way through the out-breath. And before we finish meditating, you can just think back over the last session here and can ask ourselves, what did we try out that worked well? And maybe what did we try out that didn't work so well? So the next time we sit down to meditate, you can try to do it worked well again and see if we get the same results. And this is one of the ways we can learn about cause and effect in our meditation practice and can learn to develop it as a skill. Okay, so we can open our eyes and do a short reflection on the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So, hello everybody, this is Bhante Joe here, and just here in Pickering, Ontario. It's Friday, and thought to record a short video for the internet. So hope that everybody is having a good night or day, wherever you might be. So here in Canada right now, it's actually kind of changing over from fall to winter. Kind of all the leaves are off the trees, and there's some snow on the ground. Hopefully get some nice snowfalls later. And the weather's getting colder, so I think today was minus 6 degrees or so. And so this is the way that it goes. The seasons kind of change, seasons kind of revolve. And we can learn a lot by watching the seasons, watching the way that they change, watching the way that they revolve. So one of the most famous, the founder of the forest tradition in Thailand, his name was Lungpu Man, or Ajahn Mun, and he was from a family of rice farmers and was relatively uneducated compared to many of the monks in Bangkok. Actually, they had these kind of like ecclesiastical degrees that you could get, and he never got one. And yet he was the founder of the tradition that has now spread to the West and has inspired many people, and has produced many great monks, many noble beings. And one of the things that he would emphasize was being out in the forest, being alone. Don't have the opportunity to study the suttas, to study the books. And so therefore we can learn to look for these kind of patterns, the patterns of the Dhamma in nature. Look for the patterns of the Dhamma and what we can see out in the world, the way that things operate, And so in the natural world, this is something that's generally very easy to see. Kind of the seasons are always changing. They're kind of they don't stay static. Actually, living here in Canada, some people love the winter, may love the winter and be very happy that it's here. Now is the time people can go snowboarding or skiing, this kind of thing. Actually, a fellow was walking. I was taking a photo today of the Vistula Ravine. And this fellow came by walking his dog, and there was a lot of sun. It was kind of a nice day. It kind of warmed up a bit in the afternoon. And I said to him, "Hey, nice day." And he's like, "Yeah, I love this weather. I love the I love the cold." So some people really love the cold, and so may be very happy that the seasons change. And inevitably they change again to spring, to summer, to fall, and back to winter again. And so all these kind of seasons, they rotate, and they're kind of rotating. This is part of the natural world, and kind of the way things change, the way things arise and fall away. And this was one of the things, reflecting on it, that in the West there's quite a lot of skepticism about rebirth, about the way that a person's actions will continue after death, and lead them to a kind of new rebirth. You know? And this was reflecting on this. This was one of the things that gave me confidence in kind of a rebirth. You don't have to. It is possible for people to be able to recollect their past lives and to be able to see beings dying and reborn. But actually, I mean, it's not necessary to be able to do all these things to gain a sense of conviction in the principles that the Buddha teaches, because these things are right there in nature. You can see that the way things come together, it tends to be cyclic. You know, kind of there's a spring, a summer, a fall, a winter, a spring. And actually, when I was young, I was also a business student, and they had these kind of business cycles, these kind of cycles that were driven by desire. You know, so you watch a stock market, there'd be kind of these periods of booms and busts, booms and busts. And a lot of these things based on people's desires. You know, kind of people see a new stock, get very excited, and you know the stock rises, and you know keeps rising, rising, rising. People realize, wait a minute, a lot of this. A lot of this rise in stock prices is fueled by excitement, not by not by genuine opportunity all the time. And so then the stock crashes, and people get very afraid, very disgusted with this kind of stock, and so the price crashes, maybe below what it's worth, and then can rise again. And based on people's kind of craving and desire, you also have these kind of cycles in business where consumer confidence rises and the economy does well, and things seem to be going really well, and then all of a sudden there's a kind of recession. It's called the business cycle. And so looking in in nature, and also just in human interactions everywhere, is kind of, you see these kind of cycles, these patterns of arising, patterns of stability, and patterns of passing away, patterns of arising, patterns of stability, patterns of passing away. Excuse me. And so actually the other day even I was talking with the chief monk at the Mahavihara. His name is Bhante Ratanasiri, and I was telling him I'd met with a friend of mine, and we were talking a bit about cosmology. In Buddhist cosmology, actually, even the universe is subject to periods where it grows or expands, it stays static, and then it declines, and eventually disappears, vanishes. And then there's another period where there's no universe at all, and then it re-arises, and the same thing happens again. So all too often, is observing these kind of cycles in nature, the way that these patterns work. This can give rise to kind of insight into these processes in one's own mind. Because the nice thing about the Buddhist teaching is that they're kind of like the laws of science. All these kind of amazing inventions that people have discovered, people have created. All these things come from their observation, of natural laws, their attempts to discover natural laws and to create machines in line with these natural laws. And these kind of things are available; they're present for people to observe, just in the normal world, just in the natural world. And in the same way, the way that one's mind works, it's available. The kind of the teachings of the Buddha, they're based on principles that start right here, start in one's experience of the five senses, start in one's interaction with the five senses. So just seeing this, just seeing the way that these things kind of arise, pass away, stay stable for a while, arise, stay stable for a while, pass away. This gives a lot of insight into the way that craving can work in one's own mind. So watch these kind of stock market cycles. You can do this not just in the natural world, can do it with stock market cycles, can do it with movies, whatever it is. There's this time when they arise, when they peak, and then they fall. All these kind of things are all kind of driven, not necessarily the seasons per se, but a lot of these things, a lot of the ways that we see these kind of cycles in human interactions, they're kind of driven by this desire, kind of this idea or this feeling that if I can just get this next thing, then it's going to be good. Things are going to be good. And that thing, whatever it is, has the ability to distract one for a while so that its consumption is pleasant. But then the way that consumption works, the way that a person's consuming of things works, the more that we eat things, the more that we consume them, the less each time we consume that thing, the less its kind of distractive ability, the less its ability to kind of totally overwhelm our senses so that we can just consume it and feel like we're in another world. It's kind of like what a movie's like. So people watch a movie about like a Western or whatever, and maybe the first time they see it, depending on the culture, they're kind of really absorbed into that movie. But then watch movie after movie of Western, and eventually the same kind of a plot, the same kind of cowboys rustling or or whatever it is. It doesn't have the same ability to grab a person's attention. And so when that happens, a person's interest in these kind of Western movies falls away, and kind of the sales of these Western movies fall away. And so a new movie needs to arise to take its place. A new genre, whatever it is, needs to arise. The thing about this is we kind of observe it. It's there's no end to this kind of craving, no end to this kind of running after things. It's kind of it's never satisfied by just getting that thing. That's only a temporary satisfaction that lasts for a bit, as long as it has this ability to overwhelm our senses, this kind of newness, this freshness to it that seems to take us and absorb us into whatever it is that trying to consume. But that doesn't last, because each time a person tries to consume it, the pleasure the relative pleasure they get from that grows less, kind of goes down a bit. And so noticing this, we can see the way that craving works. We see the patterns of craving that kind of drive us in this kind of cyclic existence, kind of bind us to these things that are subject to arise, stay for a while, and pass away. Arise, stay for a while, and pass away. And the thing about this is that it's all driven by what the Buddha calls avidya, or ignorance. In other words, one of the ways to look at it is that we think that this next thing is going to give us that happiness, But then often when we consume it, the mind is somewhere else. There's kind of this ability to overwhelm our senses. And so what we end up with is this kind of this calculation that's a bit off. If I can just get this next thing, this next thing, this next thing. So the mind's always kind of reaching out to the future, reaching out to grab onto something that it doesn't have. And one might think, okay, the solution is just to be happy with whatever one gets. But even there, kind of one doesn't escape from craving. So just noticing this, noticing the way that the mind kind of runs out and rushes after things, grabs onto them for a while as long as they're cresting, and then falls, grabs onto it and falls. That can give rise to what the Buddha calls a sense of samvega, which is kind of a desire to escape, a desire to escape from a cycle. It's kind of, I remember being a kid and there'd be these kind of merry-go-rounds, or actually, there's this kind of like tilt-a-whirl. Sometimes you'd stand on this thing and you could spin it, and it had these kind of iron bars, and you could hang on to it, and your friends would spin it for you, and there'd be this centrifugal force trying to pull you out, and you'd be on this thing, you'd be holding it, your friends would give it this really good spin. And eventually you'd start to be on this thing spinning around and around and around. You'd start to feel like a little bit, sick to your stomach, and kind of want to get off. Maybe your friend, just to kind of, poke you, keep spinning this thing, but now you're too dizzy, so you don't want to hop right off. And so in the same way, kind of when we notice these kind of cycles of craving, wanting something, having it for a bit, and falling away, wanting something, having for a bit, and it falling away, never getting permanent satisfaction, you can start to feel this kind of disillusionment with it, this kind of like nausea, like being on this kind of a tilt-a-whirl. And this is what leads to the desire to escape. This is what gives us the kind of impetus in our spiritual practice to kind of move forward. Is this kind of feeling like, oh, this thing is it's just spinning around and around. I better hop off of it. There's kind of no end to this. But all these kind of things, this kind of desire that arises to escape, is called samvega in Pali. And it's a good thing, it's this desire to try to find a way out, to try to find a solution to the kind of problem of craving, try to find a solution to the problem of suffering. And this is where all these kind of great desires in the world come from, actually, is kind of this drive to find a solution. So this is the nice thing about it. When we observe these kind of patterns in nature, we observe the way things arise and pass away. We observe even the patterns in things that aren't natural, like the stock market. Kind of whatever it is that's fueled by human desire, then we see this kind of principle operating on small scales in our own minds. We see when we're after that bag of chips and we eat half of it, and suddenly, and then kind of each subsequent bag of chips, we need more and more to provide the same desire, or to provide the same level of distraction. You can see it kind of in the stock market, kind of the way these things just kind of arise and fall. People getting so excited. In movie ticket prices, you can see it. In fashion, the way that kind of fashions kind of arise, stay for a while, and fall away. It kind of never ends. You kind of always need the new pair of jeans. Always need the new shirt. When this kind of thing happens, we see this. We think, maybe there's a way out of this cycle. Maybe this kind of craving that I'm having is not helping me to find this kind of permanent satisfaction. And when we have these kind of thoughts, and what it tends to give rise to is this feeling of samvega, like I've got to get off this tilt-a-whirl. This kind of cycle of just craving, having, losing, craving, having, losing. And then of course this desire, from this desire comes this need to find a solution to this kind of endless cycle of just spinning around and around and around and around, having and losing, having and losing, having and losing. This is what the Buddha calls being blown by the 8 worldly winds. Gain and loss, pleasure and pain, status and loss of status, fame and anonymity. All these things kind of circle around one another. And just having one, grabbing it, holding it for a while, that when we're holding it, we lose. We often lose the very things that allowed us to get it, and kind of falls away. This constant spinning around. So when one sees these things, one starts to generate a desire to find a solution, and this is what leads a person forward on their path of practice. In other words, it's not just that there is this kind of craving, it is that there's a solution to it. And in the same way that one learns to see the kind of small things, like these kind of small patterns in one's own mind that actually are operating in the world, similarly, one learns to practice, learns to do small things, learns to try to gain victory over hatred in small ways, victory over conceit in small ways, victory over delusion in small ways, victory over craving, that craving for the bag of chips. One starts to try to find the solution to these things, keeps putting forth effort to use the Buddha's teachings to find solutions to these things, and the day comes when one is successful, at first just on a small scale. But that too is another pattern that can give one confidence that it's possible to find a solution to these things on the small scale. Then surely there's a solution on the larger scale too. And so this kind of pattern of searching for this desire that comes up to find a solution, reaching for the solution, trying different ways to try to find a solution to whatever negative mental habit we have. And then finally, the day comes, we find a solution. That right there gives us a lot of insight into the Buddha's teachings and leads us forward, like kind of these branches on a path, kind of one's ability, or one's ability to overcome these negative things kind of increases. And kind of these negative habits fall away. It kind of like branches forward, kind of leads one onwards, leads one forward to be able to try to conquer and tackle new bad mental habits, new things that one wasn't able to take on before. And of course all this leads to a sense of confidence. Like, well, this is really possible. It really is possible for me to overcome these negative things that are in my mind that I thought couldn't overcome before. This kind of thing comes from this desire that I have to overcome them. And this desire comes from this understanding, from learning to observe, what is it that's causing me to suffer? How come I keep getting caught in these cycles of craving again and again, again and again? And how do I get out? But all these things, so this is why the Buddha's teachings are said to be leading onwards. They start from doing things like this. The principles for the Dhamma are available right here in one's own immediate experience. One's ability to find, okay, what is it that's the problem here that's causing me to suffer? That's available in one's own immediate experience. One's ability to try to find the solution for that problem once it's arisen. That right there is available in one's own immediate experience. And then when one finds a solution, that leading onwards is also right here. It's also in one's own immediate experience. It also arises. it's also something that one learns to investigate in the mind, in the present moment. Yeah. So all these things are available to us in the Buddha's teachings. It isn't something that's necessarily really far away. That's far away in the books, far away in the minds of the great monks, great people who've practiced and attained in the past. It's right here. It's available to us right now. In our own immediate experience, in our own minds, the principles of the Dhamma are always teaching us, which is why Luang Pu Man gave those instructions, to learn to see the principles of Dhamma in nature, in the world around us, because they lead onwards. They lead us to this sense of dispassion in nature. They lead us to see solutions to the problems that we have in nature, right, in our world around us. And once finding those solutions, they lead us to end the suffering that's associated with those problems that we have. It's all available to us right here. So these are some of the teachings, from my understanding, of Luang Pu Man's teachings, and also of the principles of the Dhamma available in nature. So hope that might be to the benefit of people who listened, and hope that everybody has a great day, and wishing you all the best until next time.